Alright, today's job is converting this thing from a flatbed to a roll-off truck for roll-off dumpsters. So this flatbed is really rusty and falling apart. So it's getting cut off, but I'll be leaving the rail that supports this whole thing because that will be an integral part of the roll-off dumpster system. Essentially what's going to happen is cutting off this flatbed because it's shot and leave these two rails in place with the hinges and also the dump hoist up there so that it'll still tilt up and down, and then in the ends here there'll be these two pieces of channel that slide in and out hydraulically. And I have the steel over there in the Bronco. I'll have a cross member on the end, something for the hydraulic cylinder to push on, and when this is tilted up at about 45 degrees, I'll have it extend about 4 feet down, and that'll hit the ground so that I can back up with the rails, and then there'll be a winch up there that will pull the dumpster up onto the rails. And it won't just be a dumpster that I can put on this thing. With that setup, it's a pretty universal setup. I could put a dump bed on it, like this guy over here. I could put a water tank. I could put a chip body. I could put a flatbed. Put a vacuum tank. There's a multitude of uses that can use that platform. There's a 12-foot long frame rail, and, fits behind the crane and all. And this being a 4x4, it's not installed yet, but the axle is there. I just got to put axle shafts in it. But this being a 4x4 and having all these hydraulic things on it, this will be a very useful truck. Also, we'll be building a new front bumper for this thing at some point. And last time I used the crane for a big job, I crunched the cab up there, so I have a new windshield. I just have to straighten out the cab, and that was annoying. But I'm still trying to decide what tires to put on this thing, because these 11R 22.5s, they work okay, but they leave a little bit to be desired, especially on the front, because these are pizza cutters. I thought about 385 float tires, perhaps, or military tires, 46-inch. It's a possibility because these are Bud wheels. Maybe flip them this way on the front and then flip them around for the back. I've seen that done on other trucks. Looks pretty cool. That'll also help with the overdrive because this has a 1-to-1 transmission. So it does 70 downhill, and I'd like to be able to do maybe 75, and those tires would do it. And they'll still fit up there with steering and all that stuff. So hopefully this will be a really unique truck when it's done. The first step is to cut this old bed off. I'll be cutting it off at the rails. The only welds I can see on here are on this side and sometimes on the inside, but sometimes there's plates like this I could cut away, and this middle cross member is all rotted away. I'll be cutting all that off. So the plan is to leave the dump hoist and the main rails alone so that I don't have to move any of that stuff, and just have the extension slide in the back, and then mount a 3-spool hydraulic valve in the cab to operate the tilt, the extend, and the winch rather. To operate the tilt, the extend, and the winch. So let's get to cutting. Huh. Well, that could have gone better, but that's pretty crusty. Maybe it's better to get some new pipes, some square tube for the side rails on this thing. But, I mean, you can see how rusty that bed was. That metal crossmember was gone. Huh. Yeah, it actually pulled the pin out of the lift cylinder on this side. So I thought that was a tube that went all the way through. It wasn't another truck ahead, but not this one. Well, looks like this lift, what do you call it? Jack, I guess. Hoist, dump bed hoist. Looks like it's in good shape, and it's probably just fine staying there. I was thinking it would save some work to use these rails, but I don't think these are really usable. Come to think of it, they're not really thick enough to support something hanging off the back. That sucks. But at least that worthless flatbed is off of there. That's going in the scrap pile. Alright, time to rethink this just a little bit. Really should use box tube for this. All the big, I mean they're the big ones, so maybe it's different, but all the factory dumpster roll-off systems use concentric square tube. So maybe I should too. But I can still use that steel over here for the sliding mechanism. Now it's just got to be something different to hold it. Alright. Got some progress. Oh well. So I got the new hoses that are running through the frame rail and all that stuff. Got this cylinder just tack welded in place. The camera battery died, so I didn't get to film this stuff, but I went to the fittings place and I got these hoses here and all these fittings. Also I got another bag of fittings, stuff like this to adapt everything to where it needs to go. I got this valve ready to come out. That was the dump valve for a while. It's pretty difficult to film in here, so I didn't really bother. I got the handle out of here, it used to be here. I also got the hydraulic unit for the plow out of there. Around the bolts from the bottom, because this is right here is where the hoses are going through the floor. Right around here. Then they go out along here. Two of them go to the crane, one here and one to the pump, because it goes from the pump to the valve body in there and then out here to the crane and then back to the tank. So all those lines that we're feeding this thing are off. They're right here. These go to the dump cylinder, so I got new ones. I'll be replacing those. This line right here is from the yellow crane. You can kind of see the yellow paint on there. Some of the parts are from the orange crane. But this line here, that was the outlet, that big one. That goes back to here. It's an extra return line because they had this set up as a single acting jack, even though it's actually a double acting one. You can't see from here, but there's two hoses on it. So because I'm going to be using it as a double acting jack so it can pull down, I'm just going to run regular hoses straight to that valve in there and replace this orange line with this yellow line, so it doesn't have this extra return, because I don't need that anymore. And then I got 25-foot hoses for the winch, because it's got to go all the way down and all the way back up over there. And this might get flipped around because I want the cable pulling from the bottom right here, not from the top. Actually, yeah, it has to be flipped around anyway because that's where the cable is supposed to come out. So that's no big deal. This thing, I got the fittings for this. So 90s, one there and one there. The hoses are going to go through this area of the frame, through these holes right here. These holes right here. Should be enough for 6 hoses. If it's not, I'm going to run 2 hoses on this side. Kind of like this. Kind of like this. So I can have enough room. These hoses are just a little bit longer than they need to be, which is good because then they won't get pulled on. I got 2 25-foot hoses, 2 16-foot hoses, one 8 and one 9-foot. Those last ones are for the jack. But another thing I was doing, cutting out this plate and using the old handle as a template. And this goes on there like that on this plate. I'm welding these in to be studs so that they can go onto this bracket that's in the cab. I thought about welding to this, but I don't really want to weld inside the cab. This bracket right here is where it's going. So the levers will face up like this and move that way. 3 in a row. Alright, let's get to it. Alright, so this thing is done. I didn't really get a chance to film the last touches, like running these lines, things like that. But everything works. Got the cable in, cylinder in. Still got to finish welding a little bit, but this thing does work. It extends all the way down to the ground. Actually, used this truck in the meantime to move a dump bed, so that's why I didn't really get a chance to film this stuff. But this thing is coming along. You know, of course, it's got a long way to go. But that's what happens when you buy a truck for $5 grand. You know, it's not going to be perfectly functional immediately. But let's see how it works. Yeah, it's on the ground on that board, but yeah, the thing works nice. It does have a little bit of trouble sliding back in, but that's because I need to put some grease on it. Need to use a grease gun with a hose on it to reach in there, but yeah. Thing works nice. Oh yeah. Thing works nice.